In the constantly shifting world of cryptocurrency, few projects have managed to stir as much intrigue as Pi Network. Recently, the conversation around Pi has reignited with the introduction of the Global Consensus Value, often referred to as GCV. This community-driven concept proposes that one Pi coin should hold a symbolic value of $314.159. At first glance, it might seem like just another bold number in a space filled with ambitious claims, but GCV is more than a price tag. It has become a philosophy, a unifying belief, and a point of both excitement and contention across the crypto world. The number itself is a clever nod to Pi's mathematical roots. It references the constant 3.14159, a number central to the identity of the Pi network. But beyond symbolism, this figure has become a rallying cry for the community. With Pi's current estimated market value hovering somewhere between just a few cents, around 30 to 60 cents depending on exchanges and unofficial trading, the contrast between reality and aspiration is dramatic. This massive gap has sparked debates not just among pioneers, the everyday users of Pi, but also among industry analysts who question whether this bold valuation is visionary optimism or nothing more than a shared illusion. To understand why this matters, it's important to know what GCV really is. Unlike a traditional market price determined by buying and selling on exchanges, GCV is not official. It doesn't come from supply and demand mechanisms, but rather from the shared agreement of the Pi community. It's a statement that says, value doesn't always need to be dictated by external speculation, sometimes it can come from belief, trust, and the collective vision of millions of people. The roots of this idea trace back to statements made by Pi Network's co-founder, Dr. Nicholas Koukoulis, who famously remarked that, Pi is worth what pioneers believe it to be. That single phrase has since evolved into the philosophical foundation of GCV. For supporters, this symbolic number represents more than potential profit. It's about building a sense of trust, unity, and purpose within the Pi ecosystem. In regions like Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and Africa, support for GCV has spread quickly, highlighting how deeply the concept resonates on a global scale. But here's where the controversy comes in. The community often talks about the dual value idea, one value that represents GCV for internal transactions among pioneers, and another value tied to the open market for external trading. Advocates argue that community-driven valuation is more stable and reflective of real utility, while critics argue the opposite, warning that two different values for the same coin could create confusion and even instability. Some analysts go further, calling GCV a promotional tool that lacks an economic backbone. They point out that if every Pi coin were suddenly worth $314.159, the total market capitalization would rival or even surpass the GDP of major economies, an unrealistic figure from any traditional financial perspective. Still, supporters maintain that GCV was never meant to be about speculative trading. Instead, it's intended as a benchmark for value within Pi's closed ecosystem. For them, GCV is about community trust, not market volatility. To back this up, some members have even proposed systems like the Community-Driven Liquidity Pool, or CDLP. The idea is simple: millions of users could commit to small recurring purchases of Pi, which collectively would create a large liquidity pool. For example, if 10 million users each put in just $10 monthly, that would generate $100 million in liquidity. Supporters argue that this approach reflects decentralization in its purest form, proving that community action can build economic foundations without depending on traditional institutions. Of course, not all claims around GCV are easy to verify. Some pioneers insist that the idea of GCV has been embedded in Pi's architecture for years, supposedly hidden in source code and transaction systems. Developers and analysts, however, often dismiss these claims as speculative or misinterpreted. This tension highlights one of the key dynamics in crypto, the push and pull between grassroots community belief and the technical, sometimes rigid realities of blockchain development. Beyond the economic debate, it's impossible to ignore the social dimension of GCV. For many pioneers, the symbolic figure of $314.159 has become a source of motivation. It's not about immediate financial gain but about believing in the possibility of building a truly global, decentralized economy. This sense of shared purpose keeps people engaged, encourages development of applications, and fosters a sense of pride in being part of something larger than themselves. However, there's also a risk. If expectations are set too high without tangible progress to match, disillusionment could follow. For Pi to maintain credibility, aspirations must be balanced with realism, and the community must be careful not to let optimism drift into misinformation or blind speculation. As Pi Network approaches the long-anticipated launch of its Open Mainnet, the role of GCV will become even more crucial. If Pi can back up this symbolic valuation with real-world utility, merchant adoption, and developer innovation, then GCV could transform from an abstract concept into a practical tool for adoption. Thousands of developers are already exploring Pi-based applications, from peer-to-peer marketplaces to decentralized services. If these initiatives gain traction, GCV could serve as the reference point that ties them all together. But success will depend heavily on transparency, education, and active participation from both the core team and the broader community. At its heart, GCV represents something deeper than a number. It reflects the spirit of the Pi Network community, a collective striving for a more inclusive financial system where value is defined not just by markets or speculation but by people and their participation. While $314.159 per Pi coin may sound fantastical to outsiders, for pioneers it is a symbol of hope, belief, and unity. It is not a guaranteed promise of wealth, but rather an invitation to help build a sustainable ecosystem where digital currency has real purpose. In a crypto landscape dominated by hype cycles, rapid booms, and equally rapid crashes, Pi's global consensus value offers a different story. It shifts the narrative from profit chasing to community building, from speculative charts to shared vision. Whether or not the ambitious number ever aligns with market prices, the underlying message is clear: value does not have to come from external validation, it can come from within. This is why, despite the criticism, GCV continues to thrive as a movement. For millions of pioneers across the world, it's more than just math, it's a declaration of independence from the volatility of traditional crypto markets. It's a reminder that in the era of Web3, communities, not corporations, hold the power to shape the future. And perhaps that is the real value of GCV, not the digits attached to Pi, but the unity and purpose it instills in those who believe in it. So as Pi Network moves toward its next chapter, one thing is certain: GCV is not going away. It may evolve, it may be challenged, and it may even be redefined, but its role as a symbol of collective belief will remain central to Pi's identity. Whether seen as visionary or unrealistic, it continues to inspire, provoke discussion, and remind us that in crypto, the most powerful currency of all is community trust.